Hello! So I'd like to mention that even though the entire world is snowing, it is currently 70 degrees outside and absolutely gorgeous.
Look at all this green!
I know you're jealous. So today we're going to talk about that movie Mama, the one that we've all seen the trailer for that looks absolutely awesome. I've now seen this movie twice, so I think I've built a pretty good opinion on it. I've got to say, it is one of the worst scary movies I have ever seen. And I've seen the ones from the 50s where they wear the costumes with the zippers down the back. Yeah, it was pretty bad. So I might just want to say now that if you're really planning on seeing the movie, which I suggest you don't, I'm probably going to let slip some spoilers, so if you really want to see it, then don't watch this. One of the things I really didn't like about this movie is that it was just really slow. A lot of scary movies, they'll have periods of slow parts where you're supposed to learn the plot line and get used to the characters and just kind of get used to the story. And I like that period of slow because it gives you a break from being completely frightened the entire movie. It also helps build up to those scary parts. But when a movie, especially a scary movie, is just completely slow the entire time, it just kills the movie for me. And that was one thing about Mama that I didn't like. There was just a massive period of slow with random points where you would just get kind of jumpy, like maybe a face would pop out or a cat would jump out or the little girl would pop out of nowhere and you would just kind of jump, but it wasn't scary. You weren't actually frightened. I felt no fear in the pit of my soul. The first time I saw this movie, I actually found the middle kind of scary. The second time I saw it, I found it kind of ridiculous and almost funny. It wasn't scary. One thing, for instance, the graphics that they used to portray Mama, it wasn't that scary. Now, there were some things that they did absolutely wonderful, like the way her joints would dislocate and move. The way that she physically crawled across the floor was absolutely fantastic, but other than that, her face, it just kind of looked like this weird woman was there. And so it made all the scary parts kind of funny because the way she would look at the people or the way she would pop up, it was just kind of funny. I found myself laughing the whole second time I saw the movie. The main thing that really bothered me is the lack of a plot line. I'm the type of person that I really like to decipher a movie. I like to understand things. And when I don't understand a movie, I don't like the movie because it made no sense to me. There was no purpose for it. And that's how I felt about the movie Mama. I felt that there was no plot. I felt like they built up this movie to make it a fantastic plot, but they didn't explain it enough. They tried to explain the characters through flashbacks or talking in the background, and it just really didn't work for me. It didn't connect because I couldn't understand what was going on. I couldn't understand why the father was bringing the girls to the forest or what he had done to make him so depressed to bring him to the forest, because all they did was play it in the background through a radio and you could barely hear it because the father's screaming over it. I couldn't understand why Mama needed those girls, why she was taking care of those girls, because they only showed you through a flashback and a dream that barely made sense because there was no talking, there was no audible, it was just pictures, and you really don't understand who Mama is or why she's doing what she's doing, and that really bothered me. That lack of plot, that absence, because it made the movie less scary. It made everything less scary because they had no plot line. The final thing that really bugged me about this movie was how weak, how absolutely weak the ending was. It's like this movie had a sort of a slow build-up. It was very slow with jumpy parts, and then towards the middle end, you started feeling it, you started getting that scared, you see it like building up and you're like, all right, this movie's gonna have an epic ending, you're there, you're gonna do it, and then it just crashes and burns. You know, in a movie that heightened fear, it took everything that had and just bam, you left that movie thinking, all right, well, good, that movie's over. Great, I'm gonna go home now. The number one thing I like about scary movies is that lingering feeling of leaving the theater like, oh my gosh, is that ghost gonna get me? Is that murderer gonna get me? Is something gonna pop out and scare me? And oh my gosh, I need to hold someone's hand as I walk to the car because I'm scared. I like that scary feeling after a movie, and Mama gave you none of that. It took every bit of fear and just let it all die. At the end, you weren't afraid for the people. You weren't afraid for Mama. You weren't afraid for the girls. You weren't afraid for the people that died. You weren't afraid for anybody. You just felt kind of bad for everybody. Overall, Mama gets kind of like a 2-star for me. The graphics were bad. There was no scary ness. There was no plot. So if you're planning on seeing Mama and you were really excited about it like I was, I'm sorry. It's a bad movie. I would suggest that you don't go spend $10 on seeing that movie and that you wait for it to come out on Redbox if you really wanted to see it for yourself, but I suggest that you don't because it was just a bad movie. Unless you want to laugh. You could use that movie for that. So, that's all I got for you today. I have nothing else to say. I don't know how to end this. Endings are so awkward. Batman! Okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I get really excited when I wear my Batman shirt. Bye! Mama!